we've got a really scary chart for you. We know what it looks like lately when Republicans are in control of the U.S. military, when they're making the foreign policy decisions for this country. And we know also what it looks like when Democrats are. We have pulled out for the most part from Iraq. We are pulling out for the most part from Afghanistan, and we've avoided entanglements in Syria and other countries as well under Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. That was a period of relative peace for the most part. Unfortunately, it looks like the American people have not gotten the lesson, and for the first time in a number of years, Republicans now have the edge when it comes to who the American people trust when it comes to foreign policy. Take a look at this chart. See there, the blue line, obviously the Democrats have long been at a major deficit in this regard in comparison to the Republican Party, even during the 90s. When we saw what can happen when you don't just engage in endless foreign wars. And it was only during the worst years of Iraq that the American people switched over to trusting the Democratic Party more. As things stabilized, that went away to some extent, and now it looks like they're trusting the Republicans. That's scary.
Yeah, that drives me crazy. Because
it's hard to understand.
Look, if you want to say, hey, I'm frustrated by the Democrats' foreign policy, I'm right there with you, brother, okay? Whether it's Obama sending in the 300 troops to Iraq, here we go again. And there's a whole host of issues that, of course, Democrats have gotten wrong. Republican trust in Republican foreign policy should be approximately zero, right? What have they gotten right? Okay, so let's go back, right? You want to go all the way back to Ronald Reagan? That's the greatest Republican president ever, right? I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a liberal, so secretly they're like, I don't know about that.
The greatest modern conservative.
Right. So Ronald Reagan, what did he do? He went to Lebanon, got his ass kicked. We had Marines die there, over 200, because he's put them in there like sitting ducks. Then he ran, and then he traded arms for hostages. I mean, it's a miserable record of failure for Ronald Reagan. He negotiated with terrorists. I mean, you name it, he was a miserable failure, right? We had a little respite there with George H.W. Bush. I thought the Persian Gulf War was well executed, right? And so at least he had some grown-ups in his administration. Then you go to George W. Bush, which was an epic disaster. I mean, literally of historic proportions. So, and now these guys, they go on TV, they don't even know who anyone is. They hardly know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia. All they have is, Obama's wrong. Benghazi, right? And they're fools. They're fools. You're going to put our troops and our foreign policy back in the hands of these basically drunkards. Like, I don't mean physically drunk. I mean drunk on like their hatred for Obama, their lack of logic and reason. So yeah, if you're frustrated with the Democrats, I understand. But the Republicans have been a disaster for as long as I've been alive. How could anybody be in favor of Republican foreign policy?
And it's not like the people who were around and who were making the case for war with Iraq and Afghanistan under Bush, those people aren't all dead now. It's not like there's some new generation that's learned lessons from the past. They're still there. They're still on cable news making the same arguments that they were. The neocons got sort of chastened a little bit. They backed off a little bit for a few years, but they're back. They've been dwelling on their blogs and things like that, but they're back on the news, and they want the same thing they wanted back then. If you had known, like many people supported war with Afghanistan especially, and for the most part Iraq, because they were scared out of their minds by the administration. But if you had known then that we would still be considering sending thousands of troops back in, would you do that over again? The American people are saying that they're ready to do that over again because they trust the same brand, perhaps even more radical, of Republicans to control the U.S. military.
So let me give you one last example. So Republicans are now saying, I can't believe Iran has a uranium program. They might develop nuclear energy and then nuclear weapons and then get missiles, et cetera. And that's terrible for our allies in Israel. I can't believe this. So you got to elect us to get rid of it. Do you know that actually during the Bush administration, Iran unilaterally offered to get rid of their uranium program and stop supporting Hamas? It was an incredible offer. And actually Bush could have gotten a little bit of credit for it because it was in the height of his, throwing his weight around, and Iran was a little scared. So like if they had any kind of wisdom, and by the way, it wasn't just that they were scared, and nobody remembers this, but after 9/11, Iran did candlelight vigils for the US. All across the country in Iran, okay? So now that's all long gone. It's ancient. It's, no, we hate Iran. Iran hates us. They hate our freedoms. Nonsense, right? Now, I don't like the Iranian government. There's a whole host of problems there, obviously. But they offered it up to us on a platter. And Dick Cheney said, we don't talk to evil. So right now there could be no uranium plan. They might have even pulled back their support for groups that we're not friendly with, that we've got a massive problems with. Instead, because we had a Republican president and vice president, they said, oh, okay, then I guess if you can't give you a great deal, well, then I guess we'll oppose you, right? And they continue with their uranium program. So it's just they're ignorant through and through, and their ignorance hurts us. It doesn't make us stronger, it makes us weaker. So please, fix your face.
Saudi Arabia, they're Sunni. Iran is Shiite, and Saudi Arabia, we're cozy with them because, we get a lot of oil from them, and they don't want us to be cozy with Shia. Iran, that's also an oil-producing state. So they thwart any efforts for us to have actual peace with Iran. And Saudi Arabia, they fund so much extremism. I mean, as we all know, 15 out of 19 hijackers, Saudis. Saudi Arabia funds Wahhabism. They fund many of the extremist rebels, the ISIS, the Levant, the rebels in Syria who are extreme, and they get a free pass. The American media never talks about it. The politicians never talk about it. And then we have George Bush and Barack Obama bowing and kissing King Abdullah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You remember when Bush made out with Abdullah in Crawford? Yeah. They walked around kissing each other on the cheeks and holding hands and stuff like that. And Saudi Arabia.
If Barack Obama had done that, we would break our nuclear explosion video. Like we'd have to play it so many times.
Yeah. You know how Saudi Arabia polls with the American people? I don't know. Nobody's ever done a poll on it. My guess is they wouldn't score above 11%.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just so
but our government
Congress
loves them.
Yeah.
Loves them. Hey, quick question. How many of the 9/11 hijackers out of the 19 were Iraqi? Oh, right. Correct answer is 0.
17.
Oh, 0.
Yeah, I was off by a bit.
Yeah, a little bit by John. How many of them were Saudi?
It's got to be 1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah. 15 out of 19 were Saudi.
Yeah.
15 out of 19 of the 9/11 hijackers were Saudi.
Yeah.
Instead of invading Saudi Arabia, we literally took all the important Saudis in the country and flew them out first class. And then we invaded the wrong country.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder if we're driven by our oil policy. If you cared about 9/11, you're going to re-elect another Republican that took the 9/11 hijack, the country that the 9/11 hijackers came from, and more importantly, as Steve pointed out, their guiding philosophy, which is Wahhabism. Okay, and you're going to re-elect the guys who kissed their ass, who bowed down to them, and literally walked hand in hand around Crawford like they were teenage lovers. You're going to put those guys back in charge. You don't care about American foreign policy or security or our troops if you do that.